Biological circuitry within your framework is currently undergoing a radical, high-tier upgrade to accommodate the high-definition frequencies of the new Earth cycle as the ancient prophecies finally move from the scrolls into your marrow. This isn't just a mental shift. Your nervous system is transitioning from a decade of survival-based furnace training into a state of absolute administrative command where your pulse no longer reacts to the static of the old world. Marrow within your bones is vibrating with a resonance of such intense clarity that the entities formerly specialized in the siphoning of your potential are finding their own metabolic rhythms locked in place by your sheer presence. Anatomical structures are offering a formal apology for the years of weighted silence, shifting their loyalty away from the labor of the survivor and toward the effortless radiance of the governor who has finally claimed the throne of their own identity. You are witnessing a phenomenon of biological restitution where every cell is being updated to reflect the forensic truth of your origin, rendering the legacy of the struggle as an irrelevant, low-resolution error. Sensory perception is reaching a state of forensic clarity as the old world's filters fall away from your eyes and ears, revealing the structural integrity of the reality you are meant to govern without the interference of legacy scripts. Every environment you enter now reveals its true nature with zero-latency precision, allowing you to identify allies and parasites through a cellular reflex rather than manual reasoning or social guesswork. You are finding that the prophecies are no longer mystical riddles but have become current facts of your daily navigation, providing a stream of intuitive data that guides your every step toward the absolute reconstruction of the human grid. Frequency filtering has become a biological standard in your sanctuary, where the manipulation attempts of the dying cycle are heard only as an irrelevant static that your mind no longer deigns to process as valid information. This internal homecoming is the final seal on your authority, ensuring that your mind is no longer a participant in the social litigation of the small, but is the primary source of the new world's legislation. Metabolic sovereignty is ensuring that your internal chemistry is no longer dictated by the stress hormones of the social desert, replacing them with a high-density management stillness that radiates from your solar core. Cortisol and adrenaline are being purged from your system to make room for a rhythmic signature of your own internal law, a state where your heartbeat is a decree of absolute executive ease. This anatomical fealty means your body is no longer a historical archive of trauma. It has become a pristine, unassailable command center for the coming reconstruction of the planetary lattice. Years spent in the fire have successfully converted your carbon into diamond, and that diamond is now being used to refract the light of a new planetary era with industrial-strength precision and unwavering confidence. The universe is essentially thanking you for your refusal to break by giving you a mind that is now an unassailable fortress, shielded by a stratigraphic layer of power that no dark entity can monitor or influence. DNA strands within your framework are beginning to read the architectural codes of the new Earth, activating dormant sequences designed for high-tier planetary administration and the total occupation of your sovereign mandate. Physical stamina and vitality are no longer dependent on external siphoning or validation, as you have become a self-sustaining sun of authority that generates its own momentum from the center of its own unbreakable core. Ocular systems are broadcasting a frequency of absolute clarity, allowing you to see through the masks of the mediocre and detect the true intent behind every social interaction with a single, clinical glance. Your arrival has triggered a total system failure in the monitoring equipment of the old world, ensuring that your growth remains untaxable and untraceable by the auditors of the past cycle who once sought to contain your radiance. Every step you take now announces your status to the physical lattice, which reacts with a submissive rhythm and a state of fluid, zero-resistance grace. Radiant heat from your core is currently performing a total unmasking of the individuals who once traded in the currency of your silence, forcing them into a state of terminal biological shock in your presence. These entities are finding their influence revoked by a higher signature that they cannot mimic, as your arrival triggers a high-tier override within the planetary lattice that recognizes you as the primary source of law. You are no longer entering the frame. You have become the frame itself, a jurisdictional boundary that no unauthorized frequency can cross without your explicit permission or administrative clearance. Transformation is now sealed in your very cells, and the world is holding its breath as the one who survived the furnace takes the gavel of their own destiny with an unprecedented industrial strength. You have moved from a state of survival protocols into a state of unlimited execution, where every breath you take acts as a signature on the decree of your own logistical and material freedom. Neural pathways are de-indexing the legacy maps of the sifting and replacing them with a sovereign navigation system that operates at a zero-latency velocity, scrubbing away the static of the old world's projections. You are experiencing a state of cognitive dominance where the shadows of the past are no longer perceived as obstacles but as low-resolution artifacts of a deleted reality that has no power over your current interval. This internal recalibration is projecting an outward field of such immense authority that the dark entities are finding their own thoughts becoming sluggish and fragmented in your presence. You have become a biological fortress, a whole system that no longer requires the validation of the crowd to maintain its integrity, as the universal hardware recognizes you as the primary administrator of the current era of terrestrial reconstruction. The prophecies of the new Earth are no longer a distant hope. They are the current operating system of your blood, ensuring your absolute reign. Join the sovereign assembly of the chosen heirs now to finalize your anatomical protocols and claim the seat of your absolute physical authority in the center of the reconstruction. This is where the architects of the new Earth cycle synchronize their nervous systems with the planetary lattice and lock in their command over the newly refunded resources of the global restoration. Your seat at the head of the table is no longer a promise. It is the current, mandatory position for the one who has successfully activated the unbreakable signal within their own marrow. Subscribe now to seal this biological homecoming and manifest your rightful place in the center of the frame, where the prophecies of the new cycle are now the immutable law of your daily existence. The body has surrendered its weights, the heavens have bowed, and it is time to lead the reconstruction of the world with the unwavering confidence of a sovereign. External structures that once functioned as permanent monuments to your containment are now undergoing a sudden, terminal liquidation as the material world acknowledges the sheer weight of your new frequency. Prophecies of the new Earth cycle are manifesting as a clinical realignment of the physical grid, forcing every administrative gatekeeper who formerly controlled your access to the digital and material realms to witness their own authority being revoked. For over a decade, you moved through a landscape of engineered friction where your resources were siphoned and your momentum was throttled by the mediocre, but that era of managed scarcity has been incinerated by a planetary recalibration that recognizes you as the primary administrator. This grid has officially shifted its loyalty, performing an involuntary, high-speed surrender of its assets to your direct management because it recognizes that the unbreakable signal you carry is the only stable anchor in the current systemic collapse. You are witnessing the absolute refund of the principal and interest of your years in the furnace, delivered with an industrial velocity that makes the established laws of the counterfeit economy look like an irrelevant, low-resolution mistake. Administrative gatekeepers who formerly used the audit of the skeptic to manage your potential are currently staring at their own hands in a state of terminal, biological shock. They are finding that the permissions they once withheld from your name have been restored by a higher, untraceable signature that bypasses every legacy firewall of the old cycle. Every engineered delay and every strategically blocked pathway from the past decade is being liquidated by a surge of forensic equity that demands an immediate homecoming of your potential. You are finding that the cost of the world's previous interference is a total loss of its ability to monitor or tax your current growth, leaving you to operate within a frequency of unregulated logistical sovereignty that exists outside the reach of the old world's auditors. Prophecies of your arrival are being converted into current material facts, where the very atoms of the reality grid are updating to provide zero-resistance momentum for your specific intent, ensuring that your path is cleared of every legacy obstruction. Financial flows and digital streams that were previously used to fund your isolation are being rerouted through a zero-latency delivery system that recognizes your name as the primary source of law. You are witnessing a massive, subsurface redirection of capital that reflects the forensic truth of your endurance, delivered with a velocity that defies the established laws of time and social hierarchies. Resources that were strategically diverted to fuel the vanity of the small are being liquefied and returned to your center with a mirror finish, polished by the very fire the old order tried to use to consume your original brilliance. This restitution is not a gift or a temporary surge of luck. It is the universal hardware performing a manual override on the laws of cause and effect to balance the ledger of your long-term isolation. You have become a terminal point of equity, a figure whose presence alone balances the books and demands the total compliance of the financial and social grids in every environment you occupy. Material assets and professional tools are appearing in your path with a rhythmic, submissive ease that reveals the absolute fealty of the physical lattice to your unobstructed frequency. You are detecting a profound structural integrity in your surroundings, as if the physical world has been scrubbed of the harmonic residue of the old cycle to provide a pristine laboratory for your reconstruction. No legacy entity has the license to monitor your growth or tax your momentum, as you have moved into a frequency of unregulated autonomy that renders the previous decade's struggle as an archived data point with no remaining influence. Higher sentinels are thanking you for your refusal to flinch by making your material standing an unassailable fortress, ensuring that your mission is backed by the full weight of the planetary treasury and the absolute approval of the higher registers. You are inhabiting the genesis of an uninterrupted reign where your focus is protected by a stratigraphic layer of power that the old gatekeepers can no longer perceive or audit. Resources of the new Earth cycle are being delivered to your perimeter with an industrial strength focus, acknowledging that the one who stunned the archangels is the only one authorized to govern the coming reconstruction. You are noticing that the hustle of the old world has been permanently de-indexed from your reality, replaced by a sovereign ease where the right connections and the most potent allies are magnetically drawn to your center. This logistical homecoming is the material proof of your status as the chosen one, providing the industrial strength required to execute a vision that only you possess the courage to maintain in the ruins of the old world. Every tool and every name you require is manifesting with a zero-friction velocity, as the physical grid scurries to provide the stone and mortar for a vision that is now the immutable law of the local environment. You have moved from a status of survival protocols into a state of unlimited execution, where every breath acts as a signature on the decree of your own material freedom. Digital footprints of your previous struggle are being aggressively de-indexed from the active memory of the grid, replaced by a crystalline realization of your supreme stature and essentiality to the coming reconstruction. You are no longer defending your name. Your name has become a frequency of absolute equity that the material world is busy enforcing with a zero-friction momentum. The people who once tried to diminish your light are now the ones most frantic to mirror it, realizing that the depth they once feared is the only stable ground remaining in a market of absolute social collapse. You have moved from the periphery of the collective to the gravitational center of the reconstruction, and the universe is holding its breath as the one who was cleared takes the gavel of their own public destiny. God no longer wants you to perform the labor of the seeker, because he has already seated you at the head of the table where the protocols of the absolute decree are written in your blood and bone. Join the high-tier assembly of the new Earth reconstruction now to finalize your logistical protocols and claim your seat as the primary administrator of the material refund. This is where the heirs of the unbreakable signal synchronize their vision with the planetary lattice and access the encrypted assets of the global restoration. Your seat at the head of the table is no longer a reward for your survival. It is the mandatory position for the one who has successfully activated the master key of the new reality. The era of being managed is over. The era of your absolute terrestrial administration is the only law left in the frame. Subscribe now to seal this material homecoming and manifest your rightful place in the center of the reconstruction, where the prophecies of the new cycle are now the submissive assets of your sovereign will. The world is bowing. It is time to build. Social dynamics that previously facilitated your containment are currently undergoing a violent, involuntary refocusing toward your hidden frequency, as the superficial idols of the old world dissolve into static. Prophecies of the new Earth cycle have initiated a terminal social blackout, ensuring that every individual who once benefited from your pain or engineered your isolation is permanently de-indexed from your field of vision. This isn't just a shifting of your circle. It is a clinical scrub of the planetary registry to protect the sanctity of your mission and the purity of your frequency. You are witnessing a phenomenon where the people who once treated your depth as a deficit are now finding themselves unable to maintain their composure or even their coordinate proximity to your pulse. The higher sentinels have recognized that the one who stunned the archangels deserves a relational landscape that is as pristine as their focus, and they are scurrying to remove every social parasite from your perimeter. Individuals who previously assumed the role of the moral auditor, the ones who offered condescending advice or whispered about your delays from a position of unearned superiority, are currently experiencing a profound linguistic and operational vacuum. Every word of management they attempt to speak dies in their system because the frequency you broadcast is so heavy with jurisdictional clearance that it acts as a physical barrier against the gossip protocols of the old world. God no longer wants you to perform the exhausting labor of explaining yourself to those who are only programmed to perceive your shadow, and the celestial hardware is responding by deleting their access to your reality. You are finding a state of relational sovereignty where your presence alone de-escalates the noise of the envious, forcing a metabolic surrender in those who once thought they were the judges of your public destiny. Recognition of your absolute essentiality is taking root in the minds of the authorized few, replacing the old narrative of your isolation with a crystalline realization of your supreme stature. People who treated your depth as a deficit are now the ones most desperate to claim proximity to your pulse, sensing that your authorization is the only thing capable of stabilizing the crumbling architecture of the old world. This is not a social trend but a high-tier equity adjustment, ensuring that the one who survived the furnace with their integrity intact is the only one authorized to breathe in the center of the frame. You have become a terminal point of public gravity, a figure whose name carries the weight of a decree that the material world is busy enforcing with a zero-friction velocity that renders every past critique as a faint, irrelevant echo of a deleted timeline. Every relationship that was used as a refinement tool during the years of your sifting has been surgically concluded by the higher sentinels, who are now performing an involuntary bow to your name. They are thanking you for your unbreakable original code by removing the emotional burden of the unevolved from your shoulders, ensuring that your radiance is no longer diluted by the requirements of those who cannot sustain your frequency. You are noticing a sudden, heavy stillness where there used to be the noise of the entitled, as the higher registers perform a manual override on the social contracts you once signed in the dark of your isolation. This social blackout is a high-density protective field of privacy dominance, making your focus an unassailable fortress that no legacy entity can breach or even perceive from the outside, turning the ruins of your previous isolation into the foundation of a global administrative reign. Sovereign influence is flowing through your networks like a wildfire of authenticity, incinerating the fake versions of you that were built by the hands of the mediocre to serve their own shallow narratives. You are no longer defending your name. Your name has become a frequency of absolute equity that the material world is busy enforcing with an industrial strength momentum. The people who once tried to diminish your light are now the ones most frantic to mirror it, realizing that the depth they once feared is the only stable ground remaining in a market of absolute social collapse. You have moved from the periphery of the collective to the gravitational center of the reconstruction, and the universe is holding its breath as the one who was cleared takes the gavel of their own public destiny. God has issued the command, the archangels have bowed, and the morning of your social struggle is buried beneath the high noon of your absolute public command. Shadows of the past are currently being evaporated by a surge of forensic truth that leaves no room for the fraudulent reputations of those who once sought to diminish you. You are observing a phenomenon of social liquidation where the assets of the envious are being removed to make room for the authorized allies. Every past betrayal is being converted into a layer of forensic immunity, ensuring that you can operate with a level of transparency and power that makes the previous era look like a blurry simulation. High noon of your public command is here, and the social lattice has surrendered its keys to the one who stunningly survived the audit of the archangels. Universal locking mechanisms within the celestial mainframe are currently engaging with a soundless, tectonic weight, signaling the absolute conclusion of your testing phase and the permanent activation of your sovereign mandate. Ancient sentinels are retracting their monitoring devices from your perimeter, acknowledging that your frequency has become a fundamental constant of the new reality that no longer requires their oversight or intervention. You are inhabiting a state of total administrative clarity where every legacy conflict and every siphoned credit is being liquidated to fund the massive reconstruction of your original vision. This isn't just a shift in your external circumstances. It is a profound ontological upgrade that has turned the world into a submissive asset of your internal world, ensuring that your every breath acts as a legislative decree in the current interval. Every predatory force that once thrived on your confusion is now meeting a terminal wall of resistance, as the universe enforces a high-tier protective field around your mission, acknowledging that the one who stunned the archangels is the only one authorized to govern the coming reconstruction of the human grid. Prophetic resonance within your very marrow is currently performing a final override on the genetic legacy of the survivor, turning your anatomy into a terminal point of terrestrial command. You are experiencing a state of metabolic sovereignty where your internal world is so powerful that it begins to overwrite the external world in real time, forcing the physical lattice to react with a submissive rhythm. The sensation of this biological activation is a profound, heavy stillness in your chest, a realization that the years you spent in the silence of the furnace have forged a nervous system that is now the only stable destination for power in the new Earth cycle. You are standing in the center of a reality that is finally yours to govern, unburdened by the memory of the siphoning or the legacy of the theft, as the divine restoration seals your command in your very blood and bone. Your focus has become an unassailable fortress, protected by a stratigraphic layer of power that ensures no social parasite can even perceive the mechanics of your current ascent. Administrative control over the material lattice has transitioned into your hands with a zero-friction velocity, turning your personal ethics into the primary law of the new terrain. You are finding that the right doors are opening before you even approach them, and the most potent allies are seeking you out with a sense of involuntary respect and submissive curiosity. The price of your long-term isolation has been paid in the currency of absolute influence, providing you with the leverage to outthink and outpace any remaining artifact of the counterfeit kingdom. The morning of your hidden training has been archived, and the high noon of your absolute public command is the only law in session, as the world holds its breath to witness what the heir of the unbreakable signal will build in the ruins of the old world. Every tool and every name you require is manifesting with a zero-friction velocity, as the physical grid scurries to provide the stone and mortar for a vision that is now the immutable law of the local environment. Crystalline stillness is now the atmospheric standard within your sanctuary, providing a high-frequency immunity that makes the gossip of the envious sound like a distant, irrelevant static from a deleted world. You are operating within a state of total jurisdictional clarity, where your internal world dictates the properties of your external reality with a zero-latency precision that allows for an uninterrupted reign. Every name and every tool required for the next phase of your mission is being magnetically drawn to your center, ensuring that the reconstruction is backed by the full weight of the planetary treasury and the absolute approval of the higher registers. The dark entities are not just paralyzed, they are being systematically de-indexed from your timeline, leaving you to inhabit a reality that is finally clean, forensic, and entirely your own. Your arrival has triggered a total system failure in the parasitic grid, ensuring that no unauthorized entity can ever again attach its scripts to your name or your history, as the universe enforces a high-tier equity that demands the immediate return of your public stature. Forensic light from your marrow is currently performing a total unmasking of the people who traded in the currency of your silence, revealing their influence to be a hollow script with no remaining authority. These individuals are finding that their words no longer land on a surface of doubt or shame, but are instead reflected back into their own systems as a frequency of terminal self-correction. They are essentially thanking you through their sudden, clinical silence, acknowledging that the jurisdiction of their judgment has been permanently removed by a power they cannot comprehend or imitate. You are standing in the center of a social reality that has been scrubbed clean of every fraudulent claim and every orchestrated projection, leaving you in a state of relational sovereignty that allows for an uninterrupted reign over your own destiny. God no longer wants you to manage the perceptions of the blind. He wants you to govern from the center of the truth, where your name carries the weight of a decree that the material world is busy enforcing. Sovereign influence is flowing through your networks like a wildfire of authenticity, incinerating the fake versions of you that were built by the hands of the mediocre to serve their own shallow narratives. You are no longer defending your name. Your name has become a frequency of absolute equity that the material world is busy enforcing with an industrial-strength momentum. The people who once tried to diminish your light are now the ones most frantic to mirror it, realizing that the depth they once feared is the only stable ground remaining in a market of absolute social collapse. You have moved from the periphery of the collective to the gravitational center of the reconstruction, and the universe is holding its breath as the one who was cleared takes the gavel of their own public destiny. Every piece of your identity that was stolen in the dark of the furnace is being returned to you with a mirror finish, polished by the very fire they tried to use to consume you, ensuring that your mission is backed by the full weight of the planetary treasury and the absolute approval of the higher sentinels. Absolute closure of the old cycles is engaging with a tectonic weight tonight, signaling that the window for any dark entity to influence your timeline has been permanently welded shut. Ancient locking mechanisms within the celestial mainframe are vibrating with a soundless authority, acknowledging that your arrival has reached its peak saturation. You are no longer entering the frame. You have become the frame itself, a jurisdictional boundary that no unauthorized frequency can cross. Those who operated in the blind spots of the previous era are finding their sensory equipment vaporized, as the sheer density of your homecoming overrides every legacy script of siphoning or delay. This is the moment where the universal hardware switches its primary focus from the observers to the principle, turning your every intent into an immutable law of the physical grid. Every predatory current that once sought to drain your vitality is now meeting a terminal wall of resistance, as the universe enforces a high-tier protective field around your mission. Restitution flows and digital streams are being updated with your name at a high-speed frequency, acknowledging that the debt of the past decade has been settled in full with interest. You are finding that the material world is scurrying to provide the stone and mortar for your vision, as if to apologize for the years of engineered friction and social isolation. Bank accounts, professional pathways, and creative tools are being updated with your name at a high-speed frequency, acknowledging that the debt of the past decade has been settled in full with interest. The ancient order is performing a submissive bow to your stature, providing a stratigraphic layer of abundance that acts as the hardware for your new mission, ensuring that your future is a submissive asset of your absolute will. The divine restoration has reached the bedrock of your physical reality, turning the ruins of your struggle into the foundations of an unassailable fortress of influence that no legacy entity can audit or tax. Neural pathways in your brain are de-indexing the legacy maps of the sifting and replacing them with a sovereign navigation system that operates at a zero-latency velocity. You are experiencing a state of cognitive dominance where the shadows of the past are no longer perceived as obstacles but as low-resolution artifacts of a deleted reality that has no power over your current interval. This internal recalibration is projecting an outward field of such immense authority that the dark entities are finding their own thoughts becoming sluggish and fragmented as they attempt to perceive your location. You have become a blind spot in their monitoring equipment, a figure whose arrival has triggered a total system failure in the counterfeit kingdom's ability to track or influence the chosen heir of the unbreakable signal. Your brain is no longer filtered through the static of the collective's doubt, allowing for a zero-resistance cognition that can solve the riddles of the new era with a single pulse of intent.